Welcome back to Pleased to Dwell. We're now into the final section, part 4 of the book. And so if you've been with us from the beginning, we've seen the Old Testament for 6 chapters, Matthew's account for 6, Luke's account for 6, and now we've got 6 chapters leading us up to Christmas Day, if you like, that take us to the New Testament reflections, the epistles looking back on the birth of Jesus. And the first one is the first epistle, Galatians, perfect timing. Very famous couple of verses, but I want us to look at these. When the time came to completion, at just the right time, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. Of course, Paul was writing to the Christians in Galatia, or to the Galatian church. He'd planted the church, started it, got back to home turf, and discovered that some false teachers had come in, and they were pulling the people away and causing them to think that it was really up to them not only to kind of earn their salvation, but to grow by their own efforts. And so the whole letter is pointing them back to God's great plan, pointing them to the new covenant plan from the Trinity that God the Father worked in the person of his Son by the Spirit. And if we're going to look to the Trinity and the new covenant for our salvation, then of course that's what we look to for our growth as well. And it would be a backward step to look back to the old covenant. So in that context, Paul says, when the time had come, at just the right time, God sent his Son, born of a woman. This is the seed of a woman. Genesis 3:15 being fulfilled. And he came born under law to redeem those under the law. That is to buy them back, to rescue them, so that they might receive, or we might receive, adoption as sons. The passage is not pointing to issues of the spreading of the message. It is pointing to the timing of Christ's arrival in respect to the people of Israel. So some people will read Galatians 4 and say, look, it's just the right time. You've got the Roman roads, which allowed for travel. You've got the Greek language, which allowed for communication. You've got the Jewish expectations, which created a sort of missionary force as they were converted, and they were able to spread the message. And all of that is true. And I'm sure that you can make a case for that, of course, historically, that Jesus was born at the right time for the message to travel and to transform the entire Roman Empire. But I think what Paul is pointing to here is it was just the right time for Israel. Tying back to the great promise of Genesis 3:15, Paul identifies God's Son as one born of a woman. Here is the seed of the woman. He was born under the law, and as a Jew in Israel, he became part of that people, being held imprisoned by the law until redemption was possible, which it now was once he came. And he came to redeem those imprisoned ones, resulting not in further slavery, but in the maturity and freedom of adoption as sons. Of course, Paul's argument here is that if you were to turn back to the law, as the false teachers were encouraging the people in Galatia, you turn back to the law, not only does it kind of undermine your salvation, it also totally messes up your growth, because your growth is going to be as a son adopted into God's family, empowered by the Spirit, and enjoying fellowship with the Father. This freedom of adoption as sons, that's living. And Paul was saying, no, don't turn back to the old covenant. Don't go back under the law. Don't kind of enslave yourself again. The slavery that was there was for a time and for a purpose. And the purpose was to lead people to Christ like a strict schoolmaster. And the time was until the perfect time when Christ came. And so Christmas is a time when we can celebrate and appreciate the fact that God has brought us out from that imprisonment and set us free, bringing us into his family. And it really was God's salvation plan, perfect timing. Thanks so much for watching. Come back tomorrow where we'll see another New Testament reflection on the birth of Christ.